Hello, everybody. My name is Dee Moore, and I am the Vice President of Regional Sales here at Filius Bonacci. And today, we at Filius Bonacci are excited to be presenting Solver bi360 Streaming, Budgeting, and Forecasting webinar. Presenting today is Art Fletcher, who is the President of Filius Bonacci. Art is a CMA, Certified Management Accountant, and he has a tremendous amount of experience, having been through 3 IPOs. He's a prior CFO and VP of Finance. He's worked with international public accounting and has spent 25 plus years in financial accounting. Filius Bonacci and Art have been a partner of Solver for 4 years, and we continue to be an important and strategic bi360 partner of Solver. Their knowledge and expertise in both bi360 and corporate performance management has successful process improvements to the client that they serve with self-service business intelligence built on the Microsoft stack. Our 50-plus years successful bi360 deployment makes Filius Bonacci one of the most trusted and endeared bi360 partners. And now I'd like to present Art Fletcher. Art, I will now turn the presentation over to you.
All right. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dee, and I want to thank everyone for participating today and joining us on the seminar. We're going to start today's seminar with just a little bit about Solver and also talk about how we're doing in terms of, with Filius Bonacci and how do we integrate, the BI and how do we streamline our true reporting with bi360. So we're going to go ahead and show the screen here. And with that, and let's see, we're going to start show. All right. Now, with this, we are going to, with Filius Bonacci has been around for 10 years. We're a strong consulting side, and we focus 100% on the business intelligence side of the world. And we basically are 100% looking at how do we make your reporting better, how do we improve your reporting, and how do we make this a much better result to help you run and organize your organization. And here's our endorsement from Solver. Filius Bonacci continues to be a strong partner with Solver. Here you can see they can recognize our expertise in both bi360, corporate performance management, and on top of that we have over 50 successful installations of bi360 and making us, yes?
I'm sorry, we cannot see your screen.
Yeah, I was afraid of that. Sharing screen. Okay. Yeah, it's not allowing me to show my screen. Yeah, it's saying Vanessa needs to make me presenter. There we go. Let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Karen. All right. So here we can see the endorsement from Solver, and that comes from Tracy Rich, the Executive VP of Business Development and Strategic Relationships. All right. So today's agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about Solver, bi360. We're going to talk about the overall solution. We're going to just briefly mention strategic planning when it comes to reporting. How do we create that enhanced reporting and streamline reporting for your organization? We're going to run through the web portal and see how those reports come up. And we're going to build an income statement online, and we'll also see how we can get that enhanced data visualization through Power BI, and then we'll finally take your questions. So Solver is an award-winning global provider of corporate performance management software. And they've got 1,600 client customers in over 40 countries. And you can see some of the countries that we're in. One of the big things is they are part of the Magic Quadrant for Gartner's Group, and that is a pretty prestigious award to be part of that group for the corporate performance management. So what does bi360 do for us in terms of the reporting aspect of it? Well, one, it leverages our Excel skills, which we already have. It uses a modern web day portal. It streamlines your budgeting and reporting, and we're not going to talk about budgeting today, but we're going to focus mostly on reporting. It eliminates that need to ask IT for assistance, so it's self-monitoring and self-solution for a BI. Some of the pain points it solves is the lack of insight over the overall business performance, and that's due to the next line item is that data integrity or integration between disparate data systems, and how do we get those disparate systems into one location that we can report on. So we're going to focus a little bit on the architecture slide here, and we focus the reporting solution around a data warehouse because this is the collection of all my data throughout my organization that's important to me in terms of when it comes to reporting and running my business. So if I look at, here's some just samples of things that could go into the data warehouse. One would be Microsoft Dynamics or any accounting system or ERP system. Your payroll system could go in there. It could be other data sources like maybe shipping information from maybe a freight forwarder or a carrier. It could be, other systems that are outside your systems. But we can take a look at where all your data is coming from, either internal or external, and incorporate those into our data warehouse. With Filius Bonacci, we've created an ETL tool that allows us to move that data very quickly. And Razanate is our engine that moves it quickly and much faster than we can do with normal SQL tools. And we've got a nice front end called Pelota. With that, now that we've got all data in one warehouse, now I've got the ability to report off of that. And we've done the hard work for you. We've related all that data together in the data warehouse. So I've related my payroll with my accounting, with maybe my freight forwarder. And so because that data is related, now I can do reporting off of any of that, and it's much easier to pull into an Excel spreadsheet and do reporting off of it. And we'll show you an example of that as we get further down the presentation today. We also have a button that allows us to automate the publishing of the reports. So the publishing, that would be if I want to run, let's say, 10 reports at the end of the month, and say push one button and it'll automate that in terms of running the reports and distributing via email. We've got an add-in tool that will allow us to do that because that can take a lot of time for a lot of organizations. We've got the planning module, which we're not going to focus on today, but it's a very strong planning module, and gives us the best of both worlds because it is based out of Excel, but it also allows us to have the benefits of Excel, which is having the flexibility to make it my planning tool, but we also have the benefit of storing in the data warehouse, which if you do it strictly out of Excel, you don't have that strong database centricity and then the integration of all the data in there. So once again, that's a strong tool, but we're going to focus really on reporting today. And then on top of that, we've got a strong dashboard tool that allows us now to be able to see the data in our phones, off of our tablets, in our web browsers, and we can put all of our reporting there. We have dashboard-looking tools, and we can also push all the Excel-based tools or Excel-based reports into that dashboard. And on top of that, Microsoft has come out with their offering of a very high-end data visualization tool, which is called Power BI. And we'll show you an example of what that can look at. And that's an interactive capability with the data, with having those nice dashboard-looking tools out there. And once again, that will go across your phone, tablet, and your computer. All right, so we're going to focus around reporting today, and one of the things that we have to do from a reporting aspect of it to make sure our reports have significant impact. Well, one is we've got to know our audience. Who are we reporting to? What's important to them? What are the questions they're going to be asking? What are the insights that they're looking for in the reports? Two, we need to have the right amount of data. If we have too much data, we can get lost into the data. So how do we, once again, communicate that effectively with the right amount of data? Having the right tools. Do we need tabular data? Sometimes we do. Sometimes we need graphical visualization. So what is the right tool that we're using from the reporting aspect of it? And what are our outcomes that we're trying to get when we look at a report? When I give a report to somebody, what am I looking for them to see in that report? Well, one, I want to increase understanding. I want to maybe solve a problem. The other thing is I want to accelerate the pace of change. Or, a lot of times with our data visualization, we're going to put that on there to simplify the data, but not just simplify the data, but also gain additional insights by looking at the data. So here's some methods of communicating. Once again, we talked about the tabular side of it, and this is kind of an example of tabular data that's coming across, more in that Excel-looking format. We've got the graphical representation, and we'll talk about the interactive graphical representation. But end of the day, a lot of times there's a story behind the data, and it's really being able to communicate what is that end story that we're trying to drive the organization to at the end of the day. Some of the compelling reports, one, we always say at Filius Bonacci, we want a report that you can comprehend in 5 to 10 seconds. So getting that visualization is really important to us. Exception reporting. Sometimes we need tabular data, but I need it sorted correctly. I want to see the high variances at the top so I can focus in on those exceptions. And end of the day, we're looking for those tools, once again, to drive actions, outcomes, and insights. So one of the things I also want to talk about is the strategic planning. And with the strategic planning, a lot of times we don't include those in our reporting side of it. We may do that in the budget side of it, but there's action items associated with the strategic planning. And once again, that's not really our focus today, but as an example, we can come up with an interactive dashboard to show our action items related to the strategic planning. And here is just a quick example of the interactive capabilities of data visualization. And this is an income statement, and we can see the components of our income statement like revenue, gross margins, expenses, and net income. And we can see that, and as we click onto the toolbar on the right-hand side, you'll see that data change. And once again, I'll show you an example of that when we look at our Power BI solution. So here is a sample of some of the customers that are on bi360, and you'll notice some of the big names out there like the Quicken Loans. You'll notice NASCAR, which is a company we worked on. You'll see some of the sports teams out there. Newman's, Foods. We see Goodwill. So there's some very strong companies out there, big companies, using bi360 as a solution for both the reporting, budgeting, and displaying their data through a dashboard. And we've worked on a couple of these companies that you're seeing up on the screen today. So what are our customers saying? And as you've seen our customers, what are they saying about the bi360 product? Well, most notably, they say it's streamlining our internal process. Well, that's what we're focusing on day to day. How do we streamline that reporting side of it? A lot of times when I look at an organization, we ask, how much time are you spending manipulating data or manipulating reports to get them out for your team? That's one of the major questions out there. The other thing, here's, and then Marcus indicates that all the data entry takes place in Excel. So this is talking about pushing that data up into the warehouse. It could be actual data like statistical data, or it could be our forecasts, our budget, pushing that into our data warehouse. The one I really like down here is from Michael, and Michael's indicating as a CFO, he now no longer needs a team and the army of IT professionals to get his data out of the system. With bi360, we've integrated that data. We make it easy to pull out, and if I need to add data, since it's a self-service BI, we don't need that team of IT professionals to be able to, add data into our warehouse. This is another exciting slide that talks about empowering our end users, and we talked about the manual tasks it took for us to execute and create reports and do budgeting. And we can see before, the individuals were spending 45% of their time on administrative or Excel jockeying, where after bi360 they're spending 30% of their time on the administrative and more time on analysis and execution of the reports and understanding the true insights behind our data. So with that, let's go ahead and jump into the portal here, and we'll see what are some of the reports out there that will give us an insight on how the product actually looks. So I'm actually going to go into the distribution model. And right now the portal is pulling up. It's actually verifying who I am, and it's got strong security behind the data warehouse, and we can bring it down from a security level down to an actual account number, to a department. With payroll data, we can limit that payroll data to just specific individuals who can see the payroll information through your organization. So it's backed by a role-based security model, which is very important. So here we can see some of the dashboards that we have out there, and as I scroll down, we can also see some of the more Excel-like reports out there. So we're going to start with the dashboards up here, and we're going to start in our accordion view. And let's start with the number one dashboard, which is, let's look at us compared to other organizations. So as I pull up the dashboard here, you can see that we've got, as soon as this comes up, we see we've got our revenue and our gross margins, and then the margins associated with our organization. I can compare that to an industry average. Once again, this information is being stored in our data warehouse. And then we can compare it to maybe a couple of competitors out there. So once again, a nice quick dashboard that gives us the view of how we're doing with our competitors. Then I'm going to dive a little bit further into our organization, and I'm going to see, what are we looking at from our revenue. Revenue is always one of those top items out there. We're looking at our inventory turns out there, and we can see those by different locations. I can see a trend of my revenue here, and I can see my gross margins. I can see my top customers. I can see the different products that I have and the top suppliers out here. So if I actually click on, let's say, Boston University, and actually click on it, and it'll tell us what are the different products out there and which ones are the big product sellers. So we can see spring water is a big one. Crystal Clear is another big seller into that Boston market. So once again, I've got a nice interaction with my data to gain additional insights of what's happening with this data. And it gives me a nice quick overview of the organization. So here we're looking at, now we're diving into our product sales. And now we're looking at which products are the big products. So we can see spring water over here is our top grossing margin software. We can see our sales versus our gross margin. And we can see our trend in our gross margins. We can see our revenue. The nice thing about this is, once again, I've got that nice interaction. I can click on, let's say, Protein Boost. And with Protein Boost, I can see what the revenue is with Protein Boost. All my charts changed here. My gross margins changed. I can click on, let's say, our top seller, which is spring water. And once again, I can see my trend. I can see a nice trend going up in the last couple of months. And I can see also, again, the gross margins happening. So once again, a very nice interactive capability with the reporting as a tool here. So the next one we're going to look at here is we're going to look at my sales dashboard. Once again, sales is very important to organizations, so I want to see how we're doing from a sales standpoint. So I can look at the different representatives. I can click on those and see how they're doing. Once again, our trend. I can see it by the managers out there, and then I can also see by the our product lines which ones are doing, which we've seen some of this on another graph. But I can now click on the individuals here, and let's say I wanted to see Fernando. I can click on him. You can see I can see my revenue trend for Fernando. I can see his customer ranks. I can see the gross margins. The top 5 customers. He's really only got 1 customer out there. And I can also look at his AR. So once again, a really nice insight of what's happening with my sales team, being a manager, and be able to click down and see the different salespeople and how they're performing and what type of sales we're doing out there. So let's jump back into our distribution and let's look at some of our suppliers and how are our suppliers doing and seeing how the data is coming across on suppliers. Once again, we can see the delivery, the quality of the service over here. I've got the ability to drill down on that. I can see who our top suppliers are, and I can click on these, and let's say we look at delivery, 14. Under delivery, I can see from the delivery side of it which one of our products are in and which categories are being as a percentage of being delivered there. So once again, quick interaction. So with that, I'm going to now step back, and we've looked at the dashboard side of the world. Now let's go ahead and jump into the Excel-based part of the world. And the Excel-based, we can see these are built out of Excel, and I've got certain parameters that I've got up here that I can change, and I can rerun the report. But here I can see my international versus the North America, more of a tabular, but we're also using our conditional formatting to really highlight some of the really important data points out for us. If we look at it, here's another one with a graph in there, so we can actually see the tabular information along with our graphing information. And here I can pick which country I wanted to run it for. So if I wanted to run it for U.S. or Canada, Europe, I could do that. We're going to stick with the U.S. and we're going to refresh because we've got more data in the U.S. And as this refreshes, it's going out to the data warehouse, pulling that data back and telling us where our actuals are compared to our last year. And now we've got our variances. Once again, we're highlighting those variances. We got our graphs here at the bottom, so we can see more of a visual data. And down here we've got a nice graph on the actuals versus. And we can also push this into full screen mode. So we've got a little bit more real estate, and then we can actually look at the numbers too. So if we want to see that by month, we can see those coming across for the actuals, and we can see our variances here. So once again, nice little bit of tabular data. Let's jump out and let's look at one more thing, and that's going to be our profit and loss here. And with our profit and loss, this is more of a traditional income statement. We can do all our traditional financial statements like income statement, balance sheet, cash flow, our normal kind of more of a tabular looking data is what I would call it, that we can then produce. And we can do consolidations very easily. But here we're actually combining both the graphical representation with our income statement. And we can see our variances, and we've highlighted our variances. Once again, if I put that into full screen mode, we can actually see a little bit more of this data coming across. So let's say I wanted to share this with somebody. We've got ability with a one click of the button, we've got the ability to share this data. I can do the QRC code. I can actually send them a download. I can actually download this file, and I can send this via email. And I've also got a download button here too. So let's go ahead and download this. And we're going to download this, and we're going to call this income statement. And we're going to download that. So once that is downloaded, we're going to go into our File Explorer, and we're going to actually pull this report up because we've got some important things that we can now do with that. So I can see here's my income statement that I just downloaded. We're going to double click on that. That's now going to open up our Excel. And with that income statement, I may want to do what-if analysis, or I want to make some modifications to this income statement. Say, if I increase revenue to a certain amount, this is what that will look like. Well, the nice thing about that is all my formulas stay when I downloaded this sheet. And let's say I really want juice revenue to be 800,000. Add another 0. And you can see my total revenue change, and with that, I know that I've got to, increase the marketing, because the marketing is going to push a big push out there to get this product out there. So we're going to change that to 550,000. And once again, all our numbers change. I can see what my gross margin percentages are. You can see what my net income side of it is. So it gives me a really nice capability to do that what-if analysis. All my graphs up here change according to what I input here. So once again, really nice interaction. I've got all the capabilities in Excel. I can then go ahead and save this file out as my what-if scenario. All right, so with that, you're probably asking, okay, what does it take to build an income statement? So since we're already in Excel, we're going to close down that one, and we're going to start a brand new income statement here from scratch. We're going to build this thing from scratch. So right now I'm logging into the warehouse, and you can see over here in the far left-hand side, we can see it logging in. It's authenticating us to who we are, what security we have, and we'll start building our income statement once it's authenticated me. It's asking me what warehouse I want to go into. I'm going to go into the corporate demo, and you can have as many data warehouses as you want. As you can see, I have a couple of them out there, and I say OK. And once it's loaded, now it's loading up the warehouse, and it's going to put over here on the left-hand side, it's going to put the modules that I have associated with the warehouse. And you'll see that I have general ledger. You'll see that I've got, all sorts of things that you normally see within an organization, but you also see things that, like Google Analytics, because I can pull in other data that's external to my organization and add that if that's important for enhancing my reporting side of it. So we're going to create an income statement. And first thing we need to do on our income statement is we're going to grab in and we're going to pull in our period. So we're going to go grab period. We're going to drag that in and drop that under income statement. And we are not going to create a row selection group. Okay. The other thing that I like on here is I like to insert my logo. And the nice thing about it is once I've formatted this report, and we've got it ready to go, it's always going to be out there. So I'm going to insert my Filius Bonacci logo in there. That's a little big, so we're going to shrink that down a little bit and put that up here in our right-hand corner. Make it look really professional that we've got an income statement out here. So the first thing I need for an income statement is revenue. Everybody likes revenue. So we're going to put revenue out there. I'm going to grab my account, grab my description, and I'm going to pop that in here. So once again, I'm interacting with the data warehouse. It's a drag and drop function to get data into our report. So we're going to now create a row selection group because it relates to the whole thing. And sometimes I want to know what that account number is because I haven't got my account numbers memorized. Well, I'm going to click on that. I'm going to drag my account numbers in here. And I've got all the functionality of Excel formatting. So now I can indent, let's say, my revenue. I'm going to indent that too. And then the next thing is I need an amount. So an amount associated with that revenue. So we're going to drag in our monthly amount. We're going to put that into D. And then D, what is column D? A lot of times this relates to a time period. So we're going to actually go out and we're going to click on our time period. And we're going to actually grab year to date. But I could drag a month. I could drag a quarter data in there. I could drag, rolling periods in there. And if we don't see one that's on here, we can always create a custom one. So we're going to drag that onto here, and that's going to be our year to date revenue. I know that my revenue that I have different scenarios out there. I may have budget versus actual. Well, I want this column to be actuals. So we're going to actually go to our scenario, and we're going to drag our scenario over into our filter for that column, and we're going to say this is now going to be actuals. There we go. Now we've got an actual year-to-date column in here with dollars in there, and I'm going to stretch that out, and since we know our revenue is a credit balance, we put in the negative sign in there just to switch it, really easy. And then we also have to limit our revenue or our account numbers by revenue accounts. So we're going to actually go in here, and I know that all my revenue begins with a 4. It could be 40,000. So every account that starts with a 4 will be actually limited now into that row, and then we need a total in there. So we're going to say equals sum. We're going to just use an Excel function down in there. Once again, nice interactive capabilities, and we're going to put in total revenue. And maybe we'll highlight that, make that bold, clean up the formatting a little bit. We'll make this, add a little color in here. Just, color's always nice in our reports. Year to date. And let's just test and see how we're doing right now. So we're going to go and run, and let's pick a period we're going to run this for. And scroll down into 15, and we'll go to 6 and say OK, and we'll run a report. Well, one of the things I want you to note is that all of a sudden this row expanded into 4 rows. So we've got the ability for expanding rows. Very important to remember. Keep that in mind as we go along and we continue down the seminar, because we're going to also see expanding columns and expanding tabs. So I'm just doing a little formatting there. So once I got my revenue done, now I need expenses. So I'm going to copy down my revenue, and I'm going to paste that down into here. And we're just make a couple of changes. Expenses. We're going to look at row 11, and how do we filter row 11? Well, before we did that, that was our revenue. Well, in my expenses, I've got a little different scenario because I've got it starting with multiple things here. So I'm actually going to go down, and I'm going to highlight my, go down to my expenses, cost of goods sold, and I'm going to highlight all the way down to my last account number that relates to expenses, which is going to be my amortization. And you can also see that we've got statistical information in this database also, like FTEs or days per month. It could be any kind of statistics we can actually add into your data warehouse for your reporting purposes. So now I've got my expenses in there. I've got to change my sign real quick. Since expenses are a debit balance for those accountants out there, we're going to make this expenses. And then we've got net income. Net income, and now that is just an Excel function. I'm going to reference my revenue minus my expenses. Boom. And now we have our income statement. Now we can run this, and voila, we've got our year-to-date number for our income. Now we didn't do so well. We had a loss in there because we had a lot of expenses. So now let's explore we can see all of a sudden, our expenses expanded out to, we've got 600 lines of information here because we've got all the expenses in here. Well, let's enhance this just a little bit more, and we're going to insert, and let's enhance this by making this a departmental expense statement. So I'm going to drag department in here, and I'm going to create a row selection group. And then I'm going to grab my department code, and I'm going to put that there. And then we're also going to limit this department by only our income statement. We don't need the balance sheet information coming across there. All right, so now we've got the department, and then what we're going to do is we're going to nest our department over our income. So we're going to go down to 14. So, and I'm going to highlight this, and then the reason being is I want to make sure that we see what's coming across here. So we're going to highlight that, and we're going to make this just a little bit different. We're going to put a little gray to that. And then the other thing I want to do is I'm going to put this as a group. I'm going to group the data here. and I'm also going to group the data here. And that's because if I don't want to see my account numbers, I'm going to put this over here, and we're going to put this over here, just some cleanup here. And we're going to then take these guys, and we'll just put those over to the right, just to make this flow a little bit better. Okay, so now we've nested it. Now when I run this statement, and look, I've got 1, 2, 3 lines of data that we've actually pulled into our reports. When I actually run this, you can see now I've got admin. Now I've got the departmental expense statement. I've got admin. I've got accounting, finance. I've got human resources. And I've got purchasing. And then I can take that one more level, and I can right-click, and we're going to add a summary, basically, just like the sum like we did down here, but we're doing it a little bit different here. And now when I can run this report, the advantages I have now is now I can collapse this report, and I've got 2 reports in one. I've got, and I should have collapsed these two, but I've got my, let's do that real quick. So we're gonna ungroup this, data, ungroup, and then we're gonna group this all together here real quick, and we'll group that. And let's add in our commas in here just to make it a little easier to read. Always want to make it easy to read. So now when I run this, we've got the ability to have, our departmental expense statements. I can collapse that down, and I can see each of the departments by themselves, and I can hit the plus button, and I can expand it and see each of the accounts in there. But all of a sudden, my report went from 3 lines of code that I drug into my report to now it's like 600 or 256 lines without doing a lot of data and without a lot of manipulation. Well, let's see if we want to add to a trend. I want to see a trend come across. So that's a real quick change. We're going to click on D here. We're going to say I want column B to be expanding now. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to drag some information in here so we can get a little bit better description of what's happening on each of the columns. Because each of those columns are now going to represent a period. So I'm going to drag my period start and I'm going to put it into D here. I'm going to right click and I'm going to format cells. We're going to go to number, go to custom here. And at the very bottom we're going to see here month, YY. So again, with one click and a couple of formatting things, now I've got the ability to see a trend across here. So I've got a trend based upon what I'm running the period for. So if I run this for period 9 and rerun the report, we can see 3 seconds later, boom, I've got now the trend through September. So one last thing I'm going to do here is, let's say I want to now put budgets on here. So I want to see what the full year is going to look like, and we're going to copy this. We're going to place this into here, and we're going to make one change here. Now, let's see real quick. We're going to copy that, and we're going to click on that. We're going to right click, and we're going to paste. There we go. And we're going to do one thing. Okay, we're going to do one thing when we do that. And we're changing our actuals to budget here. So we're going to change that to a budget here. Say OK. And then we're going to also here, we're going to say give me, in our functions down here, we're going to say give me the remaining periods this year. So we're going to click on this guy, we're going to drag that over into our functions, and then we're going to make this guy up here green. And that's going to give us the remaining periods for the year based upon our reports here. So voila, now I've got through February, and then I've got October, November, and December out there as the items that we've added into there, and then I can pull a year-to-date number in there. So quickly, you can see all of a sudden, once again, with a little bit of time, I can drag in a couple of rows in there from the data warehouse, and I can expand this out to quite a bit. Now, the last thing we're going to do is we're going to look at expanding tabs in here. So we're going to actually go up here, and because I want to see this maybe by entity, so we're going to actually insert here, and we're going to go to their general ledger, and we're going to go grab entity, and we're going to pop them right into this section here. Now we're going to create a row selection group, and the great thing is I've got the ability to run this by a tree. And right here we're going to say click and create a sheet per value, and I'm going to finish that. I'm going to clean this up a little bit, and I'm going to take that guy out. I'm going to drag this guy into here, and the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure our description is coming across properly on our report. And now when I run my report, you'll see all of a sudden I've got the ability to do a tree. And I can say I want to run this just for the Western Hemisphere. If I click on the Western Hemisphere, now you'll see I can, once it finishes running here, you'll see that we've got the Western Hemisphere. I've got Canada by itself. I've got the U.S. by itself, and I expand. But if I ran this on the consolidated node up here, all of a sudden you'll see I have the consolidated node, which is the total organization. I'll have a roll-up for the Western Hemisphere. I'll have each of the detailed line items underneath there. So I'll have Europe, I'll have Asia, and then under the Western Hemisphere, I'll have the roll-up for the Western Hemisphere, and then I'll have the U.S. and Canada under here. So you can see here's the total company, here's the Asia region, here's Asia itself, here's Europe. So Europe and Asia roll up together. We've got the Western Hemisphere, we've got Canada and U.S. So once again, quickly we can get a lot of information with a couple of clicks of the button, and really once we get talking about that streamline of reporting. I'm going to pull up one more example, and this is more of a tabular. I'm not going to build this one, but I've already built this report. And we can see here, this is just a revenue report, and if I run this report real quick, and this is just a matter of dragging and dropping. I'm going to drag and drop this information from our revenue section. And here I've got the ability to have a custom drop down in terms of what month do I want to run it for, what week do I want to run it for, do I want to run it for last year. We're going to do a custom, and partly because the data is a demo database, 2015, and we're going 9 and 2015. So when I run this data, now I've got the ability to look at this by day. I could actually sort this, oldest to newest. I can see which dates. I can actually click on. I've got full Excel filtering. So if I wanted to look at the first 3 days of or the first 5 days of the month, I can click OK. And now I've got the data, and then I can click over here and I can see which salespersons I want to look at. So I want to, let's say, look at Brian. And I can see what Brian had sold. Brian sold from the U.S. entity. Here's the customers. Here's the products they sold. And here's the total dollar amount up here. Here's the quantity. And then this is the number of customers up here. So once again, I've got an ability to look at different salespeople, different product lines. I could take off the product lines and say I want to just look at, okay, give me budgeting, because budgeting is important to me. Well, here's all the sales we did into budgeting, and I can see each of the customers, and I can see which entities they came from, which regions they came from. So once again, nice information. It's more tabular information, but we've got the same example that we're going to look at real quick in Power BI. So we're going to go up and we're going to pull up Power BI, and we're going to look at the same revenue in Power BI. So it's Power BI, and with Power BI, I built this last night, and I'm tapping directly into the data warehouse. So I don't have to build a separate data warehouse. I don't have to manipulate the data. We're using the exact same warehouse, and we're using bi360's warehouse to build a Power BI desktop. So this is now initializing. As soon as it gets up, we'll pull up the report that I built last night, which is our revenue. And now it's going out. It's reading the data, pulling that data back in, and giving us a graphical representation of our data for our revenue. So one of the things I want to emphasize here is here we can see what our overall revenue was. And let's select all corporations. And let's select them for, let's say, the last 5 days of the month. I want to see what happened those last 5 days of the month. Okay, so as that's updating, you can see we had overall revenue the last 5 days of the month of $443,000. You can see our top customers. You can see what our top products were. So you can see financial reporting and consulting. We can see each of the salesperson and which ones are top salespersons. And then I can look at the revenue by location. But let's say, one of the key things for me is I really want to see what's happening in the budgeting side of the world. So I can click on the budgeting here. Once again, this is an interactive capability. So as soon as I click on budgeting, it tells me which each of the customers that purchased budgeting and how much they purchased. So it tells me each salesperson, which ones had, actually sold budgeting, and then I can see where those were in the world, where those budgeting modules were sold. So let's say I wanted to just look at Asia, and let's say I wanted to unselect these, and let's look at just corporate Asia. So I can see corporate Asia, and let's say I wanted to say, okay, out of corporate Asia, I see worldwide enterprises. What did they buy? Well, it was mostly maintenance. So they bought maintenance, and here's the location of them. Let's say I wanted to look at, give me all the corporations that are based out of Canada. So let's say I wanted to look at data communications. What did they buy? Oh, they bought budgeting forecasts. Oh, that's great. And I can see Mr. Davis over here was the guy that sold it, and they are actually located in Indiana, even though they are a Canadian-based company. So once again, what I'm looking for is insights in my data, in my interaction with the data. One of the things I can look at is maintenance. So if I click on maintenance, I can see where, the maintenance was. I didn't sell a lot of maintenance, but that's good. A lot of this was reoccurring, so I can see over here, Mr. Chris, we can see that a lot of his sales were not maintenance. But if I looked at my corporations overall and looked at each of the salesperson, I clicked on maintenance, I can see all of a sudden, oh, look at this person here. Jamie, I thought did, average, but a lot of her revenue came from maintenance, so she didn't really have a lot of new sales. So I may want to, see what we can do to help maintain and boost that information out there. The other nice thing is, if I wanted to just do a customer analysis, I can look at my top customers overall for the last 5 days, and I can click on, North Star Mall, and I can see where they're at over in Virginia, and they were mostly consulting services and training. But I can go down through each one of these and click these and do an analysis and see where they're coming from, see who sold them, or I may want to say from all my customers out who. I want to look at Kyle and say, from Kyle, what did Kyle, who were the customers of Kyle? Oh, Kyle only had one customer, so here's where there was. So I can look at each of the salespersons and quickly do analysis of what product they sold, what customers they sold, just with a click of a button. Once again, getting some really nice insights. So with that, we're going to go back into our PowerPoint presentation here, and we're going to say, what questions do you guys have out there? Do we have any questions? Karen, are you seeing any questions out there?
Yes, Art, I have a couple. One person would like to know where or how current is your information, and where is the data warehouse getting the information for reports in your Power BI?
Great question, because the crux of the getting reporting streamlined is getting that data warehouse. I always say that data warehouse is our foundation, and once again, when you build a house, you want to have a good foundation on that. So when I look at the data warehouse, typically the data is being updated at night, 2 o'clock, typically in the morning is when we set it up. But with our tool, we've got the Pelota, which is our front-end engine, and we'd say we wanted to update our accounting system because we've got to run financial statements. I posted that last journal entry. I can say go out and run that, do an on-demand update. that will pull the information, then I can run those reports. And usually that takes less than 5 minutes because we've really streamlined how fast that data moves across the data warehouse. But that can be true for any data set, and we can also set up specific jobs that run every hour. We've got some companies want to run everything every 2 hours, or every 5 minutes I want this data updated. So we've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how current we can make that data. And with the dashboard tool, we can actually put this up on the screen, and it can sit up there and update the data every 5 minutes automatically. Any other questions out there? Any good?
Yes, I have another one. What is the benefit of the data warehouse to your report writing, dashboards, and Power BI?
Well, that dashboard or that data warehouse, once again, we talked about it being the foundation, but the other really nice thing about the data warehouse is we're putting the power of that warehouse in the end user's hands. So you have access to that data, you can review that data. If you want to add columns, well, I don't have to go to IT to say, okay, I need to add this column and then I need to populate it with this data and do that. You as an end user say, hey, I want to add statistical data. Well, I may use the planning module to say upload statistical data. I use an Excel interface. I click on a button that says update, boom, it's up there. If I want to add some columns to the warehouse, I go into the warehouse manager. Me as an end user, I can add that column in there. And let's say I wanted to add a sort key because everything's not sorting correctly. Well, I can sort that data, and then I can use that in my reporting and my dashboards. Any other questions, Karen?
Yes. How does Power BI or bi360 handle allocations?
Allocations, good question. We see allocations in both the budgeting side of the world, but also on the actual side of the world. And we've got very sophisticated budgeting models. The great thing that we have with the tool is we've got a data warehouse, so I can store those statistical data that I may be allocating on. So I may be allocating on FTE, which is the full-time equivalent for employees. I may be allocating based on square footage. I may be allocating based upon production. So I can store that information into my data warehouse. I can use that as my allocation basis. Then I can take my dollars times that I'm pulling out of the general ledger, my statistical information that's in the warehouse, create the algorithm that I need or the math in Excel. This is, once again, all in Excel. We're all used to Excel to doing that. And then I can take that outcome and then I can hit save, and I can save that up into the warehouse. So I've got that allocation model that's sitting out there in the warehouse. All right. Any other questions, Karen?
No, that's all I have. Thank you, Art.
All right. Very good. All right, next thing is next steps. So typically when we're working with customers out there, the next thing we do is we really determine, and what's really important to us is that we have a right fit, that you guys are looking for a solution, that our solution and who we are fits well with your organization. After we determine that, and typically we do that on an additional demo that we can do specifically for your organization. We talk about what the software costs are and the implementation. We get you an estimate, and we also provide you at the same time what the system requirements would be. There's a decision that needs to be made, and we always hope that it's a yes when it's a great fit. And from there, we would do the implementation and the training. So if you're interested in getting a demo, here's the email contact to Dee, our salesperson. She's a wonderful person, great interface. She'll get you set up on that demo. You can either contact us either through phone or also on the website to get more information. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for attending the webinar here. Hopefully you've gained additional insights on how to streamline your reporting process. And if you have additional questions, feel free to contact us at these contacts down here on the screen. Thank you, everyone, and that will finish our webinar for today.